Welcome to the channel, folks. My name's Shane. In today's video, we're going to discuss the differences between the Fender American Pro 2 Telecaster, a Fender American Original Telecaster back here. This is the 50s one. This is the one that I own. And right at the back, we have a Fender 50s Made in Japan Telecaster. Now, the Made in Japan one kind of surprised me in some ways, and I kind of wish they had done a few things with it. Much the same with each of these three guitars. I'm going to talk about the pros and cons, the law of diminishing returns, and which one you should buy if you're thinking about getting any of these three. Let's get into it. First up, let's talk about how the neck feels in the hand, because I really feel like this is a huge deciding factor given anyone's type of preference. So for what I like the big fat 50s profile neck, and this is one of those deep U necks. It's absolutely chunky. It's the biggest one I've ever played as a lefty, and I love it. So that's why I purchased this one. It's a really great guitar, but one of the downsides of it is it does have quite a high gloss neck, which isn't for everybody. In terms of the frets medium tall frets, and they feel really good and they won't wear down too quickly, which is a really huge bonus. So I'm going to give the win to mine, and the reason I purchased this was it was the best Tele I've ever picked up as a lefty. Now that's going to obviously vary if you're right-handed, but as a lefty that was by far the best. Now I say by far the best, I just had a chance to pick up the American Pro 2 recently, and this completely exceeded my expectations. I've tried the Strats and now the Tele, and this is really something special as well. One of the benefits that this has over my 50s American Original is that it's far lighter. Now I think part of that could be that the neck's not quite as fat. They call this the deep C. It's slightly bigger than a modern C in terms of its width, but it's not overly fat. I think it's a very safe neck. A lot of players will definitely get a kick out of this. Now in terms of the fret size, it feels great as well. They've gone for medium jumbo, so they're slightly fatter than the ones on my American Original 50s Tele, and I just think overall this is a really great guitar. One of the things it has as an advantage as well, we get the contoured heel here, which means you can get right up and play just that little bit easier. So in terms of sort of old school looks with modern playability, this would be the winner in terms of straight up playability, but the neck isn't quite as nice or as premium as the one on the 50s one. In my experience, it could vary from guitar to guitar, but I know a lot of people already will love this satin finish on the neck, and it really feels good. So they're kind of even in terms of playability, but just in terms of neck profile preference, I much prefer mine because it is that little bit fatter. Now, it's definitely not all doom and gloom when it comes to the Fender Made in Japan guitar, but one of the biggest deal breakers for me personally is the micro vintage frets. I don't know why Fender put these on their guitars. They should have made them obsolete a long time ago. Now, if you're a big fan of true 50s styling, you'll get a kick out of it, but I melt through these. They just don't stand the test of time. The good thing, however, is this neck feels amazing in the hand. It's almost as nice as mine in terms of its feel. It's got that higher gloss finish, but it doesn't have the vintage tint. And overall, it's just a really nice guitar in the hand, but those smaller frets make it just that little bit harder to play and to also get some purchase under the string when you're really digging in with a pick and doing some big bends. It's just a harder guitar to play because of that, but it also sounds good. So we're going to talk about tone in just a sec. Now let's talk a little bit about tone. I really feel like something that goes overlooked are the pickups, and what makes a pickup great is all subjective to what you like. I'm going to say my least favorite one here is the Made in Japan one. It sounds good, but it has far less output than the two other guitars. Now, some people desire that lower output so they can crank up the amp more. I get that, it really makes sense, but when you hear this in comparison with either of these two guitars, there's a clear output difference, and it just doesn't have quite the attack. It's almost like sometimes comparing a Squier up against a Fender or a Gibson up against an Epiphone. You always hear that inherent output difference, and just to your ear, louder usually sounds better. Not all of the time, as I've learned over the years, but some of the time. And in this particular situation, I'm either going to go for the Fender American Professional 2, or I'm going to go for my Fender American Original 50s Telecaster. Now, the 50s Telecaster has even just that little bit more output than this one, but the tone is very, very comparable. I'm going to give the neck pickup the win on the Fender American Professional 2. And I'm going to give the bridge pickup a win on my 50s original back here. So this is one of those things, it's all subjective, but the bridge pickup on this has a rounder, lower, fatter kind of sound and all the attack and brightness under the sun. Whereas the one on the American Professional, the V-Mod pickups, they sound great. They're far more balanced and maybe not quite as hot. Again, this is all subjective stuff. I think this guitar is really, really nice, and these pickups don't need replacing in my opinion. I think just as a straight up guitar, this would be really hard to beat. And if you're thinking about, you know, is it worth buying one of these over the Fender American Original or vice versa? Now it all comes down to neck size. I really feel like the American Pro 2s, some of the best guitars that Fender have ever made at that price point. If you're going to be buying a Fender American Original, it comes down to whether or not you like the huge neck and if you want a tweed case. Now let's compare the Fender American Professional 2 up against the Made in Japan Telecaster. The two complaints I have about the Made in Japan Tele are addressed with this one. We get far better pickups, being the V-Mod 2 pickups, so you won't ever need to replace these. They really feel great. It also has much larger frets. So already you're getting a better guitar and one that won't need any mods, not at least straight away anyway. Those vintage frets just don't last, and I've chewed through frets like that in the past. So yeah, this is a guitar that I would have a hard time not recommending to someone who's in the market for a Tele. You know, when I bought this, it was out before the American Professional 2s were out, and after playing both, they both feel really good in the hand. The biggest advantage that this one has, other than a tweed case over a flight case, which technically isn't an advantage, I think the flight cases are some of the best out there, is that big chunky neck, and that also comes at the expense of a little bit more weight. So man, overall, I would recommend these two in a heartbeat if you're thinking about getting a Telecaster. The Made in Japan one is good, but I don't know how much better it is than the Squier Classic Vibe 50s Tele. I would really need to compare it. I think in the hand it feels a little nicer and it's nowhere near as heavy, the Made in Japan one, but I don't know if it sounds better than the Tone Rider style pickups that are found in a Classic Vibe. So yeah, I'm kind of shocked actually. As beautiful as that guitar is visually and all that, these are by far the best too. Thanks for watching.